I started in direct marketing. These two art forms and disciplines were often treated very separately. So connect the dots. The problem that we're trying to fix is there is so much data, there is so much reporting that it becomes difficult to determine which report or which metric to trust. Potentially internally, you're debating and fighting with stakeholders. A lot of the time we would be sitting together with brands and their agencies to help.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Full Funnel Podcast. I'm Rohit, your host and resident AI-obsessed marketing professional. I've got my coffee in hand, and on the other side of this podcast mic today is Tom Gregory, who's joining us all the way from Sydney. He's the Global Head of Sales and Partnership at Lifesight. Tom, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself. How's life in Sydney these days?
Good morning. It's great to be here. I'm also caffeinated and ready to go. Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. So, Tom, let's start a little bit with your background. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about your past and how did you end up here today?
Yeah, sure. It's a sad reality that we all get old, and I'm nearing a pretty big milestone birthday, and so I've been reflecting on sort of the 20 years that I've been working in marketing recently. I started in direct marketing, sending mail. So sending personalized marketing communications in the mail, DM that folds, and transitioned then into search marketing and other performance marketing channels, working agency side predominantly. And then I got exposed to brand advertising, working brand agency side for several years here in Sydney as part of Havas. And I realized that there was this mix and blend of digital performance and brand advertising that made a lot of sense. And I often found it frustrating that these two art forms and disciplines were often treated very separately. So after working in programmatic businesses where, measurement was very limited to, I'd say, impressions, clicks, online conversions, I sort of felt there was something missing there. So when I joined Lifesight 7 years ago now, and we started looking at different ways to measure marketing, it kind of satisfied that need and those questions that I've always had. How can we measure the holistic full impact of all of the marketing to help businesses make better investments or better decisions?
Awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of my journey to this point in time.
Awesome. That's I guess you've covered pretty much the entire you have experience in the entire industry, media industry as such, right? Can you walk us through maybe about how Lifesight defines partnerships, right? Because that's, I guess, a big piece of the entire ecosystem where partnerships in the ecosystem actually drives everything forward. How does that play out with the brands, agencies, and platform within your role?
Yeah, I love working in partnerships. Just the name itself implies that we are working together to deliver a better outcome for all of the different types of partners we have. Every partnership has to be underpinned by a value. People partner with each other because there's an additional value that they're able to unlock. So I think with brands, it's always been quite straightforward. And obviously brands and agency work together. So a lot of the time we would be sitting together with brands and their agencies to help independently measure the performance of their marketing. Why? To help refine, to help optimize, to help validate, but also improve the performance. So the value, I think, for brands in the partnership makes sense. Independent measurement, trusted, credible source of data that can be used for measurement. On the publisher and ad platform side, the value is similar. Again, as an independent measurement vendor, we can provide some credibility and authority to measuring the performance of their own media. So it's a really nice place to sit in, where we connect the dots between brands, agencies, and the advertising channels and the media companies that provide those media services or campaigns.
Absolutely.
So
I think
it's
that's
fun.
super interesting.
It's as a sociable person, it's great to have that many, I guess, relationships in a market.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. I believe that measurement is essentially the connective tissue that holds everyone in the ecosystem accountable, essentially, for their part, right? And so, yeah, like you mentioned, there's no partnership without giving this value. So what do you think is the key value that you're providing to your partners?
Yeah, great question. Trust in the data. There's no shortage of data. Since the beginning of time, there has been measurement of media, whether it's been surveys, market research, and of course with digital advertising, we have hundreds of different dashboards within different platforms and different tools. So it's not been a case of there hasn't been reporting. I think it's about trying to simplify and create more holistic source of truth. I think that's that's maybe our mission at Lifesight. The problem that we're trying to fix is the paralysis by analysis problem, where there is so much data, there is so much reporting that it becomes difficult to determine which report or which metric to trust. And this leads to procrastination and not taking decisions, because potentially internally you're debating and fighting with stakeholders on which metrics matter. And within every business, different stakeholders will have maybe different views on which KPIs are important.
Absolutely.
I think, it's a well-trodden path, but a financial decision maker may have very different views of which metrics matter versus a marketing leader or someone that is responsible for direct response or acquisition marketing.
Yeah.
So yes, we're trying to solve that unified marketing reporting data to speed up decisions and get everyone aligned on sort of a single focus.
Right. Interesting. I think marketers must take charge of their measurement systems, right? Because if otherwise they have to be measurement systems have to be independent and unbiased. Right. I think one big elephant in the room is the fact that a lot of these media owners are technically grading their own homework all the time, right? And providing reports that always look good to the marketers. And folks like Google and Meta now are starting to push open source MMMs and incrementality tools. What's your take on that?
I think it's validating. It's been sort of the elephant in the room for a decade, for so long. So I think it's great that large media companies are addressing this fact that there is a limitation in last click attribution. So providing those open source tools, whether it's incrementality test tools or the open source MMM products, Google's Meridian and Meta's Robin are those respective products. It's a great first step because it's increasing awareness. A more varied measurement approach is needed. I think there are still barriers to entry for many businesses to be able to adopt some of those tools. So you're either, I guess, you either have the internal resource to, data scientists, data analysts, to be able to code and customize those models because they're not, out of the box plug and play solutions. Or you're, I guess, investing enough with those media owners so that they would provide that customization and the resource to work with them. So I think it's a great first step. And we encourage clients to test all of these open source tools. One point of view, though, is also ideally for measurement to work, you want to be able to control a methodology across everything, across all channels.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if we think about sort of, maybe incrementality testing and geo testing. So, Meta and Google have these solutions and are promoting these solutions very heavily, which is great. But, for certain brands, having one methodology that can be applied across, to test all channels just means you're able to compare like for like. You've got consistent analytics.
Yes.
So I think, if there's a way to empower businesses to be able to maybe own those methodologies and control and enforce those across everything, I think there's there's some merit in that, and that's something that we are looking to help our partners with.
Awesome. That's amazing. I think that's a critical next step in this measurement journey or evolution, right? That people are seeing in what's happening in the world today. So I'm sure you worked with a lot of big clients, like dozens of large clients. What are the kind of like organizational shifts that you're seeing in order for them to make or get this measurement working across all their teams?
Yes, so it's really interesting. It's sort of a bigger organization. Often it's a bigger organizational kind of mindset shift that is needed, and then it starts with aligning internally and trying to break down silos that exist in every business between maybe different teams who are responsible for different marketing channels or different capabilities. So an organizational shift to align behind a measurement goal, and then breaking down those individual data silences, and maybe every week where different marketing areas or different areas of the business have different KPIs.
Yes.
And some of those KPIs aren't really true reflections of business success because of limitations. So, you have certain parts of the business reporting on clicks, conversions, where then you have others that are really focused on maybe LTV, CAC. And of course, finance are really looking at, what is my true impact on profitability? What is my, incremental ROAS, and what is profitability? So, helping, I think, and the older a business is, the more likely you have those data silences, and the more likely you have kind of this slightly disjointed measurement framework across different parts of the business.
100%. Absolutely. I think the organizations have to kind of make this fundamental change it's change management, essentially, right? How people are incentivized, how data silos are broken down in order to kind of take that next big step. I think the biggest focus as a business leader today is to essentially be able to manage this change, right? And manage the shift where you got to get everyone working towards a collective goal, right? And not just focus on their siloed vanity metrics or KPIs, right? Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about, the platforms. You mentioned no code earlier. Based on your experience in the media industry and how software is used in this industry through the years, why does that matter in practice?
So technical limitations, as well as just human resource, have probably been the barriers to many businesses adopting, maybe more advanced measurement tools. I mentioned earlier, with some of the open source tools, the reliance on engineering and coders who can customize the models to be able to provide the measurement, connect data, and create tools to enable recommendations or scenario planning. It all takes quite a bit of technical resource. The opposite of that is we still talk to businesses who are operating off disparate Excel files for different channels and trying to unify this data somehow. So that's a very manual process. Now, if you had coding resource, you had engineering resource, you wouldn't be working off Excel sheets.
Yeah.
And similarly, you'd be able to unlock more advanced measurement tools. So our philosophy is, the way we have built our offering is that it's no code. You don't need developing it for for non-technical users who can query, who can set a hypothesis. Every marketer has a clear view on what they believe is probably driving the outcomes.
Yeah.
Understand. So we start with those hypotheses, and then from there can build models to either validate or disprove those hypotheses. So, and where we're really moving to is sort of a, an agentic approach where someone non-technical can brief our platform on what what the challenges are, what they're looking to prove, what data inputs they have.
Yeah.
And then using AI, we can essentially, using multiple agents, we can interpret the brief AI agents that can do the coding and adapt these tools. So no coder, I think, is very important, because coding and technical limitations block the adoption of critical measurement tools.
Yeah, I think the landscape is changing really quickly in the AI first world. Software itself is changing in a big way. It'll be exciting to see where the industry goes, I guess. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for the insight and all the strategies. Perhaps maybe you want to share some wins maybe at your end, things that you've done. Like maybe you give me an example of an agency that's using Lifesight and how they are growing their client accounts, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with lots of different types of agencies and consultancies.
Okay.
And a common thread between brands and agencies is that they are also looking to grow their business.
Yeah.
Now, how can they grow their businesses? They can grow their businesses by elevating and maybe expanding the scope of their work with clients, or of course, by offering additional services. They can also win more new business. Yeah. So really our partnership with agencies is really to support good outcomes for their clients, but also to help our partners grow. So some great examples of that we've seen just this year are digital agencies, previously digital and performance agencies, who are looking to offer and provide consulting on the full funnel and offline channels as well as digital. So by those agencies being able to measure full funnel and sort of all of the inputs, those agencies have been able to increase the scope of their work with agencies, increasing their billings, and I think also elevate the relationship with their clients to not just be a digital specialist, but to be an overarching, marketing consultant specialist. So we've seen clients involve Lifesight in new business pitches. I think any media strategy proposal should also contain a measurement strategy and a measurement framework. So so that's also what our partnerships team will help agencies with, is equipping agencies for pitching new business or for presenting new ideas or next year's plans to their clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
In terms of some numbers, we've seen, so we also work with publishers to help validate. So we've seen publishers who have been able to say they've been able to increase key advertiser spend across their platforms by 30% by including additional Lifesight measurement capability. I think, look, agencies might not always give us transparency on the incremental growth we've helped them achieve, but there are several accounts that I believe we have helped agencies win or expand using, leveraging, the Lifesight measurement partnership.
Interesting. I think the biggest thing that brands want to fix when it comes to agencies is being able to trust them, right? That they are going to, optimize the use or maximize the yield from their dollar, right? And any examples from the brand side, like brands who are currently on perhaps using like in-platform reports, that maybe graduating to incrementality systems?
Yeah, absolutely. So so we have a long background working with omni-channel retailers. We've always helped businesses measure the relationship between online advertising and offline, offline sales and offline conversions. So omnichannel is big for us. Now we work with, just to give you one example, a homeware and furniture retailer who have three sales channels. They have D2C e-commerce, they have a physical retail network, and they have and they also sell via third-party marketplaces. Such as Amazon being a big one, but other third-party marketplaces. So really, this is a great example of different silos existing within a business, and neither the business struggling to get a holistic view on what is maybe the cross-channel effect of my investment with Amazon on my in-store, or what is the impact of my D2C meta investment? How much of that is actually driving outcomes on Amazon?
Right.
And we anecdotally, our client was telling us they can see that D2C activity is driving sales on Amazon, but it was hard to quantify it. So using a combination of MMM by each channel and then merging those models, it's possible to understand what we call a halo effect between those. So huge insight was to be able to quantify this investment here on Meta. The performance on my D2C is X, but my performance here on Amazon is Y. So suddenly you I wouldn't say doubled, but you've now got a much truer view on that investment, and that allowed them to then optimize accordingly based on the total view, including other channels.
Awesome. That's super impressive.
I feel that's a huge opportunity for a lot of brands who are omni-channel.
100%. That's when it starts getting fuzzy for everybody. Do you have any stats on how you manage to get this value to the brand, like how much of IROAS improvement, for example?
So for this client, we identified that approximately 20% of their bottom of funnel D2C digital investment was non-incremental. So it wasn't driving incremental business. These conversions, these sales would have occurred anyway. So by diverting that additional 20% of budget here to top of funnel acquisition tactics to drive revenue across both D2C, in-store, and Amazon, the client saw significant incremental ROAS improvement.
Awesome. Great. What would you say to marketers who are who have heard about MMM and who have heard about incrementality testing, haven't tried it yet? What are the common myths that maybe you want to clear up for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's hard because we are encouraging brands, and we're not alone. I think as we've mentioned, the walled gardens and other measurement tech vendors are all suggesting that you will have additional insight through MMM. I think there is a fear. There is a fear of trying something. So within a business, a marketing stakeholder may be held back by a fear that the time and investment in MMM will be lengthy and hard. And what if you build a model and it doesn't work?
Yeah.
So I think there's a level of unknown there that is maybe holding back certain brands testing MMM. There is still maybe a legacy viewpoint that MMM is costly, complex, resource heavy, and the integrating of data will take you months. And I think that is potentially a view of traditional MMM where it was very manual and provided by larger consultancies.
Yeah.
I think now with tools like Lifesight where you can integrate platforms and there are tools to help with the transformation of data, I think those processes can be sped up. So I think we need to educate on what the real barriers are to testing MMM, and there are probably fewer than some businesses would think.
Amazing. Awesome. So every episode we like to do a lightning round. So 1 sentence answers. So what is a measurement myth that you love to kill forever?
That last click attribution is good or ever was good enough to make marketing decisions.
Okay. What is a metric you check before your first coffee?
Yeah, I love our dashboard. I'm a bit of an addict checking clients and partners dashboard. So incremental ROAS is probably the metric that I track, and I want to know why that's moving up and down. And curiosity is really important, but that metric is key.
Awesome. And I'm sure you're using AI tools in your life now. What is a one tool that you can't live without now?
Yeah, so me myself, I'm loving Gamma AI, which is a presentation tool. It's great from a commercial point of view, being able to get complex data and put it into a nice, easy to read slide. So we do a lot of our partner co-marketing using these tools, and then I hear our data scientists talking about Julius AI, which is an AI data analyst, and talking about talking about removing that no code barrier. I think a tool like this that can essentially replace that resource, I think, is a great prospect, and I think marketers should be looking at that too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom, for sharing all of those different strategies and also some of your knowledge in the topic. You kind of demystified the whole intersection between partnerships and measurement in essence, right? I think it's pretty much gold. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for spending your part of your day with us. Even if you picked up even one actionable idea, please hit follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And please share it with your colleagues who might be looking to up their marketing game, right? And so we'll be back next week with another AI first marketer pushing the boundaries of the full funnel growth. Until then, keep on marketing, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Rohit.